right, man.
All right.
Episode 2.
Episode 2.
We got a name.
Have we?
Yeah, Director's Debrief.
Oh, yes.
You don't know this, but you came up with the name.
Did I?
Yeah, so you said this is our debrief like a couple of times in the previous episode.
A little bit, but it's like our debrief.
And the difference is we have a name for that. We don't have a name for this.
Yeah, but maybe this is our real debrief.
Cool. All right. So as we mentioned, and my worst nightmare has happened.
Okay.
Right. Spent 6 months looking for an apprentice, hired them, and all of that stuff, and the company takes them away for a week. So I had to hit record, run over here.
Are you saying you've become reliant on the intern?
Maybe a little. Yeah. It's just nice having someone else do some of the all of the heavy lifting. Really, all I have to do is just talk. I have become somewhat reliant on the intern. And speaking of, he's come up with a few questions. And Ram, this is what I'm going to do with your questions. We are chucking them out.
I don't know if the window, the camera saw that, but
no,
he chucked them on the floor.
It was violent because we're done with them. I actually need the questions. We are going to use some of the questions. We'll cut that. We will use some of the questions that we just, whilst he's not here.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
We thought we would... It's me every time. I'm sorry. We'll use some of Ram's questions. And I did that dramatically, but he actually slacked them to me.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ram is away for this week doing his training as part of his apprenticeship program. But he has messaged me the questions nonetheless because he's a very hard worker. Thank you, Ram.
Just doesn't stop, does he?
No, the hustle don't stop. As mentioned in the previous episode, this is just a podcast where we talk less about what we do, more about how we feel. And again,
it's kind of like cheap counselling for us.
I know. So we've dropped the couple from couples counselling because technically we don't qualify as a couple.
Yeah.
Apparently you need like romantic involvement to be a couple.
I don't get this.
We don't have that.
There's too many barriers.
I know. Question number 1.
All right.
How have your priorities changed from when you first started?
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a heavy hitting question.
You didn't even give me like a little bit of a warm up into this. Okay, but I'm going to take a deep dive.
And you asked me for the questions. I don't know if I mentioned that one to you.
No, I don't think you did. I think you did that on purpose.
Yeah, I think I gave you question 2, but I never gave you question 1.
Because you knew that one would stump me.
Yeah, but how have your priorities changed since you've started this business? Obviously, the team has grown, so you don't need to do all of the stuff you used to.
Yeah, sure. I think it's stuff that we talk about all the time, but my priorities have changed, and it's stuff we've done in previous podcasts or conversations where they've moved from working in the business so much, but working on it. And everyone's heard that term, especially entrepreneurship business, everyone's heard it. But it's crazy when you see yourself evolving through that and everything you wanted to delegate some tasks out. It wasn't easy. I didn't do it right many of the times, as you know. But as you slowly progress through that and you delegate things and you start to create a system, you iron out where certain people may not know their roles or things like that. It frees up time, and suddenly your whole goal of wanting to make yourself redundant becomes true to a certain extent, and you're like, wow, okay, I'm free. And it gives you that exposure and that creativity time. So really, if I was to answer that, it's like I'm much more about focusing of where we're going and the direction we're going, what our plans are next year, the year after. If you see me stressed, kind of like I'd say it's an equal 50-50 between something that may have happened in the moment, something that needs attention then, and me just simply thinking about something in the future, which some may say is toxic to a certain level. But unfortunately in business, we do have to think about the future and where we're going, because whilst things may be great now, we've got Black Friday, Cyber Monday going on at the moment. Things are busy and everyone's really happy. Myself, I know you are as well. We're thinking about stuff that was going on next year. We've got launches next year, big stuff. We've got client demands, we've got to meet them, and that's all I can really think of at the moment. So my priorities have really changed of where we're going, growing, and how we're steering the ship forward.
What was the hardest thing for you to delegate? Because delegating is petrifying because you're used to doing something a certain way or whatever. What was the hardest thing to let go of?
Ooh.
Yeah.
You know what? It was very, very early on. So it was back in the early days when I used to actually put out the orders myself and kind of pick and put them out on the trays and stuff like that. And for ages, for a very long time, probably a bit too long, I would be the last person who checked every single order that left our warehouse.
Okay. How many orders a day, can I ask, when it was you?
I mean, in the grand scheme of it, not much, but we're probably talking about 50 to 60 orders a day. I mean, sometimes during peaks it went to a couple hundred.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be involved in any of the picking process anymore, any of the actual processing. I could be in meetings as well.
Yeah.
Certainly in our old premises and be out. But I'd be there to check and sign off. And they'd all have my signature on them, each order.
Really?
Yeah.
When was this?
I mean, we're talking about 3 or 4 years ago now.
Right. So if you ordered circa 2017, 2016,
yeah, probably 2016.
you have Ash's autograph.
Yeah, those were special orders, and I think it came down to, again, a good or bad thing, my micromanagement, but my quality control.
Yeah.
And that now, I hope everyone in the company sees that to a certain extent.
Well, you don't do that anymore, so somebody else has to.
No, but I mean, my quality control of just like everything we push out must be of the best standard.
Yeah.
It's not healthy for me to be the one checking things. I realize that, and I've understood that more and more. It took me time, and it's taking me some time still.
Yeah.
But on the same token, there's a reason why I was checking every order. It's not because I was like doing it for fun.
No.
It was because I was like, at the end of the day, we are so early, so young, and we're trying to like do the best job for our clients. My body is on the line. At the end of the day, the warehouse pickers, packers, they will go to bed sleeping well. I know that we've got to make sure that the error rate is low, minimal. And I've slowly realized that there are better processes than me checking every order, mainly because I am a human and I make human errors. But yeah, that's certainly, that probably isn't the biggest thing that I've delegated, obviously, but it was certainly the hardest because it was so early on. How about yourself? How have you found things?
Really good answers. How to follow that. In a similar way, I guess, I've delegated a lot of what I do, and for the longest part of my career here, I think, has been to make myself redundant, which is a very interesting mindset to be in, because like at the end of all of this, will they need me?
Yeah.
Which is a really weird thing to think.
Did that ever cross your mind, by the way?
What?
That, certainly, obviously, before you moved into the director role and things, but you still have that same mentality.
Yeah.
Were you ever concerned, or in any role that you've previously done, that when you're trying to make yourself redundant, are you kind of like stabbing yourself in the back?
That's a really good question. One that I actually really want to answer, because yes, it did. Not here. But in other places that I've worked, maybe you come up with solutions or things that will benefit the business, but ultimately make you not as needed. And feeling needed is nice, but also being needed keeps you employable.
Right, yeah.
But there was a mentality shift from sort of within, and that was, I need to stop thinking about I think this comes with wanting to be a director and then being one. I need to stop thinking about what's best for my career and what's best for the business. And they go hand in hand. So if I stop focusing on my career and focus on the business, my career will indirectly benefit. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's a very scary thing to commit to, because it can go one of two ways. It's still very possible to make yourself redundant and then become redundant. But it was, in my head, the mentality shift, I think, was if I make myself redundant in a good enough way, I've shown that I can add value elsewhere as well.
Right.
But also, I think once I was more secure in being a director, that's when I really started to think like, this is bigger than me. If I can, I'm like you say, I'm working on the business, not for or within the business. And I need to make sure that my actions are in the best interest of the business. My career will take care of itself. And I wonder if that's a maturity thing, because if I reflect back before, it was very like, I need to show these guys they still need me. Not here, but in previous places I've worked. And I think that's also in a bigger corporation. It's not as easy to do what I did. It's not as easy to hire somebody who does 30% of your job and then you hire somebody to do the next 30 to do the next 30. If you do that in a big enough corporation, then you're just an expense. Whereas in a smaller, more dynamic business, it's very much, we need your time. And once you've freed up your time, okay, now you can work on the next thing.
I think it all could, go ahead. In there as well. It comes down to a mentality, and I think one of the values that we have, if I were to give a value, and probably maybe need a new name for it, is we certainly at WP we have this mentality of abundance,
Right.
and it's rather than scarcity. And where I'm coming from this is that, so certainly the example you just gave of you're working in a certain role and you've made yourself redundant or your job redundant. In a certain mentality or a certain company culture, you'll think, well, what else is there for me? That's it. There's nothing more. Whereas what I've noticed from the team, yourself included, is that once one thing is done, we seem to move on to another project and another project. And I don't know if it's the industry we're in of e-commerce, our mentality, maybe things we discuss internally, maybe we both have that mindset, but of this abundance of, you know what, I'm going to go now work on this new project. I mean, you've got some new launches, really exciting launches coming up next year that are really away from our normal core focus, in a healthy way, of a way of like, these are new areas that we're branching into. And that's the kind of abundance mindset. And I see it with some of the team upstairs as well, that we're following that.
For sure. And there is an abundance of things that need to be done, and this is a very fine line that we have to dance, because there's always loads to do in our business. And that does mean you got to watch I sometimes get a text message of like, oh no, I can take care of that over the weekend. And you got to no. Like the mentality 100% love that. And I love the drive. But, we talked about in the past episode of like the mental health implications and stuff like that. So that hunger and that drive is really awesome. And that leads me perfectly on to how I feel about how my role has changed. I don't manage people. Managers are people, but I don't manage people anymore. I manage managers. And so it's more about making sure they have the tools they need to do their job, rather than me making sure everybody's doing the right thing at the right time. They're doing that now. I just got to make sure they have the right tools to do that job. I much prefer that because I've realized they're doing it way better than I ever could.
Sure.
And again, we talk about abundance, but also focus. And I always go back to a particular example about how we bag international orders. And you can there's one person who that's all they did throughout one of our Q4s, and they do it flawlessly now. And on a grander scale of it, if I manage one aspect of this business as well as 5 other things, if I make that somebody else's priority and they spend 50% of their time rather than my 25% of my time on it, they're going to do a better job of it. I just have to accept that. I also have to accept that in the beginning it might not be. I have to accept that there is a dip before the peak. And that's what you were talking about, like delegation. Sometimes when you delegate something to me, I'm going to mess it up a couple times. I'm not going to do it perfectly. But over time, I'll figure it out to get to your level. And then the next thing, I'll figure out
and then you're
how to do it better.
I mean, what you just said was absolutely beautiful.
Thanks, man.
Technical know-how.
About to go super red.
Your other things, but one of the real core parts is when you join the business. We're in obviously going through a growth period, an early start growth period. But you came in and you saw the company from an outside point of view initially, and you understood that the growth was there. But in order to get to where we really wanted to be, we needed a structure. And I remember you continuously spoke about structures to me. You talked about kind of organizational structure, culture, all of that stuff, which was, to be honest, for me as a kind of like a start in that startup feel, it was alien to me. I'd only, because this is straight out of uni, set up with obviously my mum and all of that stuff. So for you to come in and bring that, and now I'm seeing the results of it, and I understand the whole vision that you had. Is incredible, and we're seeing that growing more and more.
Thank you for that incredible compliment. What I would say to that is, and I want to make this clear, not even to you in the slightest, but to people who might be going through similar growth phases in their businesses, is that a majority of what you just said, of what I tried to implement, came from failure. That was me trying to add traditional structure to a very dynamic business. That was me trying to stop the train. And that's where the failure came from. I was trying to introduce processes and structures to places where it didn't necessarily belong. And it took me a while to understand that this business is a moving train. It ebbs, flows, it changes so often. And that's when I started to see, okay, this is how I need to do things here. I traditionally tried to go, well, from my previous employment, this is how they did it. Let's try and do that here. And those were the things that crashed and burned. But I was like, what do I like from all of these things that they're doing? And how do we do it our way? And that's the only thing that stuck. So, we can talk about Pareto's law, but 80% of the stuff that I tried failed. And the 80% of the success came from the 20% of things that actually managed to stick. But thank you. That was very nice to hear. Moving on to... Oh, did you have any?
No. Let's move on. Otherwise, Ram's going to...
I know. He's going to kill us.
Yeah.
Question number 2. Knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently when you were first starting out?
I'm not coming from the angle of no regrets or any of that, as we've spoken about, because every little thing, and I really want to steer away from getting too philosophical here, but on the same token,
please.
Every single thing that's happened in both of our lives, but I'll take mine. Obviously, when I went to uni, even prior to uni, but when I went to uni, all the kind of experiences I went through there, what I studied, how I performed in my exams, everything, and then going through the different steps of starting the business. I could easily go back and say, I would have done that, or I would have contacted this many people, rather than kind of procrastinating or not knowing where to start.
Yeah.
But on the same token, all of that gave me the experience and the kind of the route to where we are today. And I'm not saying we're in the absolute perfect place we are now, but on the same token, I'm so appreciative of where we are and what we're going through at the moment. Even how, without sounding like a couple, even how you and I found, it all kind of met, and all of that, like that all came through.
You just know Ram's going to edit that in a way that...
Yeah.
But yeah, go on.
That all kind of combined together, right? And so would I change things? Obviously, I'd like to, like little real, like zoom in on little things. But when I think about it on a more macro scale, I'm like, no, everything happened the way it should have.
Okay.
And
I have a question that I don't think will change your answer, but it'll make you think about it a little bit differently. So you wouldn't change anything, right? But what I want you to do is, okay, life is more about the journey, not the destination. Right. Let's chuck that out the window and pretend I never said it. Yep. But I want you to think about the destination. I want you to think about the end goal. You don't have to tell me what it is. But if you do, with your experience, you could make certain decisions that would push you towards that end goal a little bit quicker, or in a more seamless manner. Knowing that, would you do anything differently? Knowing you could get to your destination quicker?
Not really.
Okay.
Because like if you take your 12-year-old self or 16-year-old self, 18-year-old self, wherever you were in your life.
Sure.
What you thought was your destination.
Yeah.
How many times has it changed?
Hundreds.
Yeah. And it continuously changes, right? What you wanted yesterday is different from what you saw today.
Yeah.
Based on certain externalities, certain things that are going on in your life today. And the thing is, whilst I absolutely want my destination that I'm thinking of right now, I've got it in my head.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
As in, like, it could be there. I won't say it out loud, but it's there, right?
Yeah.
I know that that's not actually where I want to be, and I need to go through the whole journey to get to the true destination. And that's sounding wishy-washy, so I'm going to really kind of add something there. But the destination is always changing. Yeah. So by me trying to come in and kind of like see what I could do to really get to where I want to be at the moment isn't necessarily the best thing for me and where I should be going. I would allow things to just go the way they are. And that's not being lax, that's not coasting.
No.
That's just letting things, kind of letting the universe make its own decisions of where I should be going. Okay, I
don't want to keep prying for an answer, but these are genuine like fascinations that are coming as you're speaking, right? Consider the man that you are today, right. Shah of 2021.
He's a good geezer. Yeah.
Good geezer. Yeah. I can testify. But would you do anything differently to change who you are? As in better at something or worse at something, or
sure. Yeah, sure. Okay. I'm not gonna hide from that. Of course, there. Do I wish I was better at certain things? Absolutely. Do I think I can improve on them? Absolutely. You kind of got me.
Sorry.
Yeah. I would.
As in, like, here's an example, and one that I've never really considered, but I've always toyed with, and I'm really getting into cooking, right? And I wouldn't necessarily change my path that has led me to here, led you to you. I'll reciprocate that. But I'm really getting into cooking, and I've always thought, how cool would it be to travel and, spend some time in different culinary schools or with different masters of their profession, because that would lead me to be a different person than I am today. And I don't dislike the person I am today. I'm actually very content with who I am today, and I hope to keep growing. But that's like an example. That's a hypothetical vision that I've once had. It's not a dream, it's not what I want, but it's just a thought that's been out there to lead me to a point where this day, 2021 Sam is a better chef than he is in this timeline, if you will. Do you have any desires like that, or have you ever had any thoughts like that make you go, I wish I'd done that because that would make me who I am now in a certain person? You're not flawed by any means.
I've always had I always randomly think like, I always wanted to do like stage shows, like
really?
A bit of theatre.
Cool.
Yeah, like
you did a bit at uni though.
Yeah, I did a bit at uni. I actually did a bit when I was growing up.
Okay.
A thing called Stagecoach. So it's kind of a bit of acting, a bit of everything. Like so you can be involved in musicals, and I really enjoy them to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like I always think, had I given that more time and more effort, could I have taken that somewhere to a certain extent? Maybe it was my calling, maybe it wasn't. On the same token, I look at everything like in terms of time, and okay, everyone can be like, but there's time for everything, if you're organized, there's plenty of time. But on the same token, I would have had to have given up something for that. So like there would have been a consequential thing. It's what we call like an opportunity cost. And whilst I could have gone into theatre and everything, would I have had as much time with my family? Would I have had as much time studying to now run this company? And things like that will certainly evolve down this area. So whilst it's great, and in theory, going to culinary schools, I'm sure that sounds amazing. Yeah. There would have been an opportunity cost. Maybe you would have not been able to do your go-karting or things. So do you ever think of that like what would you have given up to do that?
Really interesting question. No. And is the honest answer to that. But you're right. There would have been some sort of compromise that would have had to have been made, because I've always tried to keep busy. There was a short span of my life where I didn't, and I didn't like that. There's a family... Modern Family joke of like Sofia Vergara wants to be the how does she do all that lady, and like I like people used to ask me that growing up, and there was like a 3-year gap where nobody asked me that, and I was like, maybe I'm getting complacent. And so like growing up, I used to love, I used to have a part-time job that would fund my go-karting, and then I used to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with my brother, and all of those things brought me such joy. But now if I'm thinking like, if I also wanted to add cooking into the mix, I'd have to give one of those two up. And I guess I'm seeing more from your perspective of maybe I did make the right decisions that led me to this point. Because some of my answers would have been like, maybe I would have taken my education a bit more seriously, because that would have yielded opportunities to spend time with different people in a different environment. But actually, I love the people that I got to meet. I love the experiences that I got to get.
So can I ask a question then?
Go ahead.
What's one of your proudest personality evolutions over the last 4 years?
Personality evolution?
Like things like, I'm more organized now than I used to be, or I'm spending more time with my, things like that.
My open-mindedness, for sure. I don't necessarily like the person I once was. That's very harsh. I wasn't like a racist in a past life or anything like that. But that kind of, it's really hard to explain. But
okay, so you say open-mindedness, right? Yeah. What do you think led to you becoming a bit more open-minded?
The people in my life. Right. Meeting certain people that told me about different things. Like, there's a comedian called Daniel Sloss who says, if you hate your past self, that's great, because it means you've moved on from them. You've grown up from them. But like, if I had to like materialize it, it's stuff like recycling. There are certain people that I met in my life that really cared about recycling because they really cared about the planet that we live on. Yeah. And growing up, that was never a priority in my family household. Sure. And I think that's a bit of a culture thing. That's something far more prominent here in the UK. But meeting those people and hearing and feeling their passion for maintaining this world for future generations and stuff like that has actually made me care a little bit about, not a little bit, I actually recycle now.
Yeah, sure.
And that's just a very material thing that I can express easily. But where I stand like emotionally and like how I speak to people and how when I meet people, they are a blank slate. I do my best to make sure they're a blank slate. I try and make sure that there's no prejudice. There's no like, and again, this is just a way to say it on camera, but like, oh, your name's Jim. The last Jim I met was a dick, so I'm not going to like you. But that name thing you can attribute to anything, somebody's race, sexual orientation, all of that stuff has been like, again, eradicate. It's just a blank slate. I do my best to make sure that when I meet people, that's a blank slate. That's a very good question.
It's incredible. So taking that then, obviously something that you're really happy that you've evolved and you've grown. That happened because of certain people that you met by chance or came into your life by accident, right? Based on the decisions that you're making and the journey you're going on. Whereas things like, I wish I could cook better, or I'd had all this experience. That you can still do. You could be here right now and you can say, right, I'm now going to do that. You can make that decision. Whereas things such as, I wish that I was more open-minded, those things aren't so easy. So when it comes to things, that's why I kind of segment them into two things: who you are and the things you can do. Things you are. And they're very different. And you're much more in control of one thing compared to the other.
That's genuinely feels like a therapy break because it's very I didn't realize what you were building up to, and that to reciprocate that question back to you. What is your favorite character evolution in yourself? I
should have really prepared more for this because I knew that I was asking you that.
Bound to bounce back.
You know what, it'd be something very similar to open-mindedness, but I always had the big thing growing up of wanting to please everyone around me.
Wish I said that. That's a great answer.
No, I was very much that person. I mean, I think you are to a certain extent as well. Or you were.
I'm working against it.
When we've spoken about that. So like anyone I'd meet, family members, everyone, I was like, I wanted to be that guy that got the grades. I wanted to be the guy that kind of got man of the match in his cricket game. Stuff like this. Be the man. The guy who's doing various things. Went to up until uni. I think that was certainly my mentality. And then something changed, and it probably changed because it was forced upon me. But I went to uni, and I wouldn't say I was top of the class at school or things like that, but I was quite a high achiever in that sense, and I always like reached for the best I could do, certainly in my individual classes. And when I went to uni, I realized that everyone there on my course had got there and exceeded my grades and exceeded any other extracurricular activities I could have even dreamed of. They've exceeded them, and everything. So it really puts you in your place, and you realize like instantly you can't do 5 more sports. You can't I can't suddenly learn 5 more sports or know 3 other languages. Like this just isn't possible. So it's very humbling. Probably a bit negatively at the start because it really puts you down and you're not used to being taken off your pedestal that you may have put yourself on in your own mind. But that's the experience that I went through, and it started to make me realize that like all of that stuff that I was doing, pushing, exceeding, got me my grades, great. But I really lost why I was doing things and why I was trying to what I was trying to do. So it still took me some time. Even at uni, I was applying for grad schemes and things that would impress other people. I could be at a conversation like a dinner party and be like, I'm going to blah 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 financial firm, and I'm doing an internship there, and that would impress them more than I would be impressed with myself. And we've been there. So I realized that, and I realized I kind of took a full 360 on that. 180, and I realized that, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And maybe I'll please people along the way. That'll be kind of cool. I was still interested in maybe hoping people thought I was all right. But that wasn't my sole goal. And it isn't and I completely changed that. So I don't know what you'd classify that as, but certainly I needed to go through that humbling experience forced on me to realize that actually I needed to focus on what I wanted.
I guess you're now prioritizing your own expectations and your own sort of what you want to achieve. Can I ask, how did you do that? Because I'm currently battling that. I'm currently wondering where my goals in life came from, and where these expectations we've both talked about it, we both tend to strive to be high achievers. And I wonder what's propelled me in that direction. And I'm wondering if that was myself or whether that was expectations put on me.
Sure.
So would you say that you've figured out what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't say it's a negative thing to have had expectations force you to be a high achiever. You know, certainly when you're a younger kid, that kind of, that's the reason I studied a little bit harder than I would have.
Yeah.
And I was able to reap those rewards, certainly getting to a certain uni, certainly getting to a certain course, and thereafter. But it's an interesting one. I'm still figuring it out. I'm still figuring out what gets me up in the morning, what gets me to think, right, we need 5 more clients. We need to please those clients. We need to put every last breath into making sure that they're satisfied. But I started to set my own expectations on myself, which again, healthy, unhealthy, but I've put them on myself rather than, I don't know, my parents. My parents want me to do X, so I'm going to do X. Rather than that, taken that, completely disregarded that. I want to please them, I want them to be happy with me, but I've gone, okay, Ash, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And I wish I could give you one single formula, but I'm still figuring it out myself.
I just want to add to your point of like, it's not always a negative thing in that I growing up, I had a lot of pressure on me to go study certain things, to go do certain things. Anybody who knows me will know I talk about that pretty openly. But my adult self has started to realize it actually wasn't the worst thing. It pushed me in a certain direction that maybe I didn't necessarily want to go to. But just the fact that I get to sit here and deliberate this, to think about what motivates me, what thing, and the fact that I have a choice in power over that decision purely comes from the fact that I was pushed to do well. Yeah. And that pressure in the moment must have sucked, and being propelled in a direction I didn't want to go to and resisting against that, I might have not necessarily liked, but it has given me the willpower to say no. And that's an incredibly powerful tool to have in my arsenal. Amazing. And it's also made me, get to sit here and talk about these things and think like, do I like what direction my life is heading? Maybe I can change that. And that is a luxury that you only get after being pushed to do well, because that's when everyone talks about do good in school, it will open up doors for you. It's not a direct correlation like that, but kinda. If you do well in school, it teaches you, it doesn't open up opportunities, but it makes you the kind of person who can pursue certain opportunities.
Sure. I think it teaches you that discipline.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's the word I was looking for, discipline, 100%.
Because it's very hard to find that willpower at that age, especially when you want to go do something else outside class or just mess around. But certainly discipline to that extent. Just following on that, Sam. So you say that you're looking for it, or you're trying to figure out that. But there are certain things that really strike me that you don't have to be doing what you're doing. I see you come to me sometimes and you're like, right, Ash, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be scrapping my Instagram time. I'm going to be focusing more on this study. I'm going to do this course in my evenings. Yeah. Where's that all coming from? Like, what's driving you to do that?
All right, if you really want to get into this, it's the luxury of being the youngest child. I'm sorry if anyone was watching this, but it's the fact that my parents always wanted the best for their kids, and they always pushed their kids in a certain direction in what they deemed to be the best. And it wasn't necessarily always the best, but it was, to the best of their knowledge, it was the best thing. And so they were just trying their best. I said the best quite a lot there. But I had the luxury of having the support of my 2 elder siblings, of saying like, look, we've been through what you're going through, and like, we can support you if you want to do something else. And that's made me incredibly self-aware. In that, like, I'm in full control. I'm a firm believer in, I think they call it neuroplasticity, of like, you get to make up your own mind. You get to choose, and we're about to lose a lot of listeners, but you get to choose if you're happy or not. Mm-hmm. You don't get to just like turn off a mental illness, but you can pursue actions that lead to certain results that will yield certain results.
Yep.
They're not guaranteed, they're not a given, and like, and especially when it comes to like mental health and things like that, those are things that require professional help to improve upon you. But if you're having a shit day, not clinical depression, that's something that requires medical help. But if you're having a shit day and you decide to go watch the news and hear about how many people died because of COVID, you're not really helping yourself.
Yeah.
And so I do think about a lot about the why. I think why am I doing this? That's not good in itself sometimes, but I question everything.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm bringing this up is you mentioned Instagram. I was thinking whenever I'm grateful, I'm happy. And for some reason, whenever I spend time on Instagram, I never thought I was like this, but it's a lot of subconscious comparing and contrasting. Just scrolling through Instagram and seeing my friend just bought a new car. I'm like, why don't I have a new car? Seeing their lifestyle, seeing all of those things. And especially now, the Instagram thing is a very recent thing. I've been thinking, do I even want a new car? Do I even want that? What is it that I want? And it all leads back to that. Like, what do I want? And that's where I've been the most lost. Because I don't really know what I want. I know what can... Yeah, I don't know what I want. I know I'm happy here. Yeah. I know I don't need a new car. And so stepping away from that has made me a lot more grateful for certain things. And that's made me happier. And again, that's just me pursuing things that make me happier.
Amazing. Yeah, but that's brilliant. I've got nothing to add to that.
Have you not? I don't know, because you mentioned this, and you're not somebody who I would say isn't self-aware in this light. You're very self-aware. Drives your... Let's focus on the Instagram thing, right? What drives your decisions in terms of... you don't always necessarily... You've got a great phone now, but you didn't really care much for that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You drove the company van as your main car for how many years? Yeah. I shouldn't have said that for tax purposes. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. So what drives your desires?
It's a good one. I think I'll answer that in the way of not what drives my desires, but again, going through that whole personality evolution thing, I don't, somewhere along the line, and I think it was again because I was forced to not care. I just kind of detach myself from any monetary expectation or any monetary respect. So I knew, and I think this was about the time further than when I spoke about university being taken off the pedestal. This was a little bit after, because when I took that whole 180 and I decided that I wasn't going to take that city job and I was going to go pursue this with in the startup and see where it went from there. I knew what that required, and that required a bit of quite a sacrifice, because I ditched that really nice, cushy grad starting salary. Yeah. That would have given me a nice lifestyle at 21, far better than probably any 21-year-old should have.
I don't think you mentioned this, but it was in London, right? It's what everybody at your age was doing, and it was all over Instagram. It's what people want. It's what everybody seems to want, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, correct.
No, and absolutely, and what I did was I took away what I wanted at 21 for what I wanted at the age of 30. And the age of 35.
Okay.
And beyond, but really, what I did there was I was like, look, I can be really happy now and like have this quick life, but I knew that I wanted to start my own business at some age, somewhere, and do my own thing, and I couldn't really see myself doing that, going down that route. Yeah. So what I was doing by taking the nice 21-year-old life is, okay, maybe I was overthinking at the time, but I was kind of worsening my state at the age of 30 or the age of 35, because I knew I couldn't give up that lifestyle, that career, and that drive. But to start your own business, you ask anyone who started from scratch, or close to scratch, you are starting on zero or close to it. And I knew that by going by that, my own personality, I wouldn't be able to drop that at the age of 30, 35. So I thought, here's a time, 21, where being on zero is absolutely fine. Yeah. Yes, I have my parents who I can live with, so I can support, I can live with them. I was lucky in that sense as well, and I had to move back to Leicester, which I hadn't planned to do. But I realized that if I go through all of that, then I could make myself happier at the age of 30, 35, or whenever. But just in the future, I'd sacrifice that. And again, opportunity cost there. And basically working with my mum and stuff. There was no income. There was nothing like that. And that wasn't long ago. That was about almost 6 years ago now. I realized that I couldn't compare myself to anyone else.
Right.
Because, yeah, there were my friends driving these nice cars, having good phones, all of the stuff I really, everyone wants. Yeah, we can't hide it.
Yeah.
But I realized I couldn't have that. And I'm not playing that violin that I couldn't have it. I just realized I couldn't have it at that moment in time.
Yeah.
So it really forced me to detach myself from material stuff or, what people have. Oh, this guy's worth X amount million or that. Because I was like, that's all good, but one day I'm going to have it.
Yeah.
So I can't compare myself to that guy. That guy on Instagram that's driving a new flashy BMW at the age of 21, 22, when I'm doing that and I'm just trying to make things work, I'm like, yeah, I'll get that down the road. So it's all good.
Yeah.
We're all swimming. And suddenly when you're not comparing yourself to that, and I think that's a really important thing, that you can't compare yourself to someone else because you're on different parts and different stages in your life. And I was like, all the good stuff is coming down the road. It will come. And it really forced me, because I promise you, Sam, I wasn't like this at the start. I was materialistic.
Yeah.
I wanted the good stuff, but it really forced me to detach myself from that. And really now, someone shows up in a fancy car, I'm like impressed for a start, but it doesn't touch me. Someone says, "Oh, that guy's worth a couple million or X amount." It won't stop me from going talking to him for a sense of, I just want to have a chat. I'm not intimidated. It doesn't doesn't really there. Yeah.
What got you thinking about your 30s and not your 30s, but the future at the age of 21? Where did that come from?
Ooh.
Because you delayed gratification, right?
Yeah.
Which is very hard to do at 21. Big glam in the city job is very easy to take.
Yeah.
Usually because you're blinded by. There's a former NFL player that says most people give up what they want. Most people are willing to give up what they want overall for what they want right now. And I've now that makes perfect sense to me. But had you told 21-year-old Sam that, I'd say, well, what's wrong with taking what I want now?
Right. Yeah.
And like you said, me too. I worked in a phone shop, so I always cared about the latest phone. I always wanted the latest gizmos and a nice car. And so what made you think of the future at the age of 21? Where most people are just like, I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think I was blessed with something. I was blessed that the penny dropped very early on for me. So it was literally like a striking moment. There was obviously different things, but I was studying for my second year exams and I was really stressed.
Yeah.
Probably went out a bit too much during the year, partied a bit too much, didn't focus on my studies too much, and second year was tough. There was a lot of maths modules, all of that, and it came down to a crunch period, maybe a couple of weeks before the exams, and I started to think, what if I fail?
Yeah.
What if I don't get my not even fail? What if I don't get my 2-1 or my first? What's going to happen? And I think I took a step back and I was like, wait a second. I've done everything up until this moment right in society's eyes. But I mess up a couple of exams and that's my life over? Am I really thinking like that?
Very interesting perspective.
Yeah, and I had to, because I was on the path of, I'm going to really mess these up. And I thought to myself, how can that be the way life goes, that you mess one thing up, one scenario up, and everything you've put up until that point is lost? And I really took a step back. I almost stopped studying on some of my exams and started going on these online articles and blog posts and things of people talking about the other life and starting your own business. I was really going through some stuff, and I guess that led me down the path of hold on, this is all fine. Where do I really want to be? Let's work on that, and let's take yourself down a bit, Ash. Bring yourself back down to earth, and slowly build up again. Yeah.
Okay, final question, because we're really we ran out of time 20 minutes ago, but I've always been very curious. You talk about, obviously you went through a lot of your headspace changed a lot, and it seems like mentally it was a lot for you to transition from second year to third year to now setting up this business and things like that. But when you graduated, Was that, like many other people feel, like myself felt, the most you've ever been lost in life?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask you something straight off the bat of that if we've got time. But I was very lost, but I wasn't worried.
Very good answer.
I was, and I don't know why. I should have been worried. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do some stuff.
Yeah.
Something's gonna sort itself out.
Yeah.
And I look back at the first certainly 6 to 12 months, 12 months of working with my mum. I'm like, I was just doing stuff, but I wasn't really worried about where it was all going. I wasn't trying to build some multi-million-pound empire overnight. I was like, I look back at those first 6 to 12 months, and as much as I was very lost. I probably should have been a bit worried, but I just looked back and I was like, what am I doing? And I was just trying to learn. I was just trying to figure stuff out, see what stuck. I wasn't trying to build some multi-million-pound operational empire overnight, just giving it a go. And I think that's a really comfortable place to be. It's okay to be lost. So to anyone out there who's feeling a little bit lost, it's okay.
Yeah.
Just try to, and it's easier said than done, but try to steer yourself away from worry or concern about where you're heading. You know, things will sort themselves out. They always do.
Yeah.
Just have that faith, and it's okay to be lost. Yeah. But you talk about yourself, and obviously going through. I'm sure you've been through various periods in your life where you've got a little bit lost.
Yeah.
Give me one defining time, maybe in the last 4 or 5 years, where you felt a bit lost, and how did that change or shape you?
Very good question. It would be graduation. I was working at O2 as a sales advisor, and as I graduated, like when I graduated, I interviewed to become a store manager, got that job. Very weird to be I think I was 20 years old as a manager, managing people over twice my age. That was a very weird experience, but that was when I was the most lost. I talked about in the previous episode of it was my decision to go study media. My parents very much wanted me to go study engineering or medical school. Hello, fellow Arabs who understand what I mean. That's what they really, really wanted me to go do. And there was a lot of pressure and there was a lot of disappointment when I went to study media. Whilst I was studying media, I was enjoying the ride of government's giving me a bit of money. They're paying my tuition.
Sure.
This is nice. I don't really have to worry. I was working because I wanted some more money. But, everything was kind of in place. And then I felt like I'd just been released into the wild. And that's when it really started to sink in of like, you've made your bed now. You know, if I'd gone to do what my parents wanted me to do and gone and studied medicine, I'd have a job by now. If I'd gone to study engineering, I'd be pursuing an engineering job. Whereas I'd gone to study media, not because I wanted to work in the industry, maybe a little, but because filmmaking had brought me fulfillment and I wanted to pursue that a little bit further. I was kind of just like riding the wave. I worked as a manager for a year and a half. And after I graduated and I got the manager job, I wasn't that happy that I'd gotten this manager job because I was like, I don't want to work in retail. I don't want to say no offense to anyone working in retail because nobody in retail wants to work in retail. Like, that's just the fact. I managed a team of 10 of them that didn't want to work in retail. And so, that's the most lost I think I have ever been of like, my decisions have led me to this point. For the first time, I couldn't blame my parents. Like, why'd they make me go study media? This was me. Yeah. I did that. And so that's the most lost I've been. But it was good for me because it taught me that I can fend for myself. It reiterated that I'm in control of my decisions. And just like I went to choose to study media, I'm going to choose to not work in retail for the rest of my life. I'm going to pursue a different avenue, which was kind of eye-opening. And even just saying that, somebody gave me some really good advice, and I know that they're not going to be watching this, but the greatest advice that I got I told you I'm a bit lost about what I want. I know where I'm going and what I'm doing, but I'm lost as to what I want personally, what my desire is. Screw the video. Well, this can be just via audio of what I necessarily want, and that is, the advice was, maybe it's not clear to you because you're not lost enough. You're on a trajectory, but maybe you just need to be a bit more lost. And that was some great advice. It really reassured me of like, last time I was lost, I figured it out.
Yeah.
So, if it is, what you said was absolutely beautiful. I was lost but not worried. I'm going to snip that. I'm going to snip the hell out of it and post it everywhere because it's something people need to hear. But yeah, lost and not worried, I think, is my next mental state that I need to be in. Because I found that incredibly comforting.
And it's almost empowering when you're lost but not worried, but you're in control.
Yeah.
You know, that's the greatest thing. And like you said, for the first time in your life at graduation, you were in control.
Yeah.
No one could stop you.
Yeah. I think, do you have something? No, I think this is a really great place to end. And I will turn the camera back on for this. Just so it's still recording. Ash, just say a quick goodbye into the camera.
Yeah, so a few technical difficulties, but thank you guys for listening. And if you liked it, if you want anything else, just let us know. And we'll try and do something for it. Cheers.